Hello and welcome to our webinar from Cloud Cost to Edge Control, Modular Data Centers for Sustainable and Efficient AI. I'm Dan Wilson, author at Information Week and host of the AI Think Tank podcast, where I speak to some of the most forward-thinking minds in AI, machine learning, and data science. Before we dive in, I'd like to thank the founder of NodeCom, Joe Suppers, for helping me organize this event. NodeCom has been in the Edge for many years. We'll be taking questions through the Zoom webinar Q&A, and I'll answer as many as possible toward the end of the session. So feel free to submit them at any time. In recent years, my work has lived at the intersection of AI, sustainability, and data infrastructure, helping teams rethink not just what AI should do, but where it should live and how it should be built. And that leads directly to today's topic because we're seeing a major shift underway, a move from cloud dependence to true edge empowerment. As the cost, latency, and environmental impact of cloud scale AI continue to rise, more organizations are rethinking the assumption that high performance compute has to be somewhere far away. What if we could operate right where your data is created, securely, efficiently, and under your control? That brings us to the companies joining us today. Kais-AIR builds super efficient modular and micro data centers using sustainable prefabricated materials that reduce embodied carbon, speed up deployment, and enable long-term operational efficiency at the edge. And joining us from Kais-AIR will be Paul Costanzo later, who's in transit, and he'll walk us through how these systems are designed and deployed in the real world. SwissVault complements this with an ultra-efficient storage architecture that cuts energy use and capacity requirements, often nearly in half, while improving resilience, availability, and performance for organizations bringing data on-prem. Representing SwissVault today is Bhupinder Buehler, who will share how their approach enables sustainable high-performance data management. Together, they represent a compelling new model for sustainable on-premise AI infrastructure. Over the next hour, we'll explain how this partnership works, why edge computing is resurging, and what it means for universities, hospitals, and city governments and enterprises running AI close to their data. So let's get started. So thank you, Bhupinder and Joe Suppers. Thanks for sticking around here until Paul makes it in. And so I thought I'd get started by talking about what brought these companies together, Kais-AIR and SwissVault. So when did everyone meet, Bhupinder? How'd that happen?
Well, so basically, we were looking for an edge solution, and Joe can tell you that for many years he's been working on the edge, bringing data closer to people where they can enhance the speed, the efficiency of that the edge brings as well in terms of reduced energy costs. And when we came across the modular data storage systems that Kais-AIR and Blade Room are building, we were really excited about bringing our technology together with them because we realized what AI is doing now is pushing a lot of people at the edge to be able to deploy AI. They need this very fast speed, the low latency. And AI is also about managing large volumes of data. And
Hmm.
we kind of bring that technology and we pitched it to Kais-AIR and saying, I think there's a natural partnership here where your customers need to do more with less energy, less space, and we can really help you build a winning solution for the edge. And that's where it started in exploring the concept, and I'm glad we are here today with something that's very positive.
Yeah, it's a really exciting thing to learn about and have been following for quite a while now myself. So, lots been going on. And shoot, look at the news, look at the headlines in the last few weeks. Pick a week, there's plenty of reasons to repatriate your data and cut down on a lot of the costs that have been going on. And developing your compute with your data and your AI together is a dream come true for most. But it is approachable, and it's not like you have to always use everybody else's infrastructure. And a lot of people are moving from that to a more hybrid approach and then to
Right.
on-prem as best as possible. So yeah, I can see that being very effective partnership for both of your companies.
What's kind of
Um,
interesting, Dan, I'll just kind of
yeah.
add in to what Bhupinder had to say, and that is I've been in the data center industry for many years.
Hmm.
And what we're seeing are edge data centers starting to come into evolution today. They've been around for a long time. Companies have had communication rooms in their office buildings, they're in hotels.
Hmm.
But right now, the focus is on hyperscale data centers that are being built all over the globe. But I really contend that there's a need for data centers to be closer to the end users, and there's a need for data centers everywhere. And that's what we're seeing right now. The beauty of the combination of the Kais-AIR and the SwissVault technology is that it really brings the IT into the enclosure. So we're bringing the entire data center with an easy button that would be deployed regardless of where you might want to locate this all over the globe. But we're not just delivering a box and asking you what to put in it. We're coming up with what needs to be in that box to be able to enable the AI and data storage on premises. And that's kind of where we think the excitement's going to be going forward.
Yeah, it really is, and it's the perfect size to start with for a lot of companies too. You can really scale into this as needed, and it doesn't have to all be in the same place either. And we'll get into reasons behind that as well. But just seeing a lot of the way HVAC is covered with Kais-AIR and how they intelligently manage cooling properly. Add that to the fact that SwissVault is already more energy efficient than most out there, as well as cooler. Let's talk a little bit more about Kais-AIR as well. This is something that's revolutionary because they've cut out a lot of the carbon footprint. They're not using concrete. Um, and because they're having everything built in-house and tested, it comes to you on a truck and it's modular and it's not this gigantic thing that's unmanageable. It's scale as you go, but with better energy efficiency, higher capacity for storage due to SwissVault, and a myriad of other, combinations that allow it to be flexible in different environments. So, love
Yeah,
seeing
that's quite
that.
true. That's quite
Mhm.
true because of the modular design that they've come up with allows you to scale. So each one of them,
Mhm.
if so, basically the efficiency that's gained here is that if you exactly what you mentioned, Dan, if
Mhm.
you were to commission a data center today, and Joe can speak to this quite a lot more than I can, you got to do land specifications, you got a site selection. You have to commission the building, the concrete, all the concrete development, the HVAC, the power supply, etc. And that could take years. And now we know, especially in areas where there's a high density of data centers like Virginia, it's like a 7-year wait just to get electrical power.
Oh yeah.
But what Kaiser and has done brilliantly is basically said that, hey, if you are a remote community hospital or a remote center or even an urban center, all you need is some space in a parking lot where you can roll this container up, and it contains. If you choose everything off the menu just by clicking off the basic things, it can be done in 6 months. Basically, it's on its way to you in 6 months.
Uh-huh.
And that is basically a 100 kilowatt system. Now, you can imagine if a hospital is out there that says, this year we're going to get online and we're going to offer AI enabled applications for our patients to get better, response times, et
Mhm.
cetera, increase efficiency in the hospital because we're limited in the key things, financial, energy, talent. And so you want to be able to get that hospital up and running to be able to offer the best kind of services, and they can leverage AI.
Mhm.
And so Kaiser says we can do it in 6 months. It can be up and running in 6 months. And but the equation that's limiting here is the power supply. At 100 kilowatts, if you're going to kit it out with a GPU processor and the cooling, the HVAC, as well as the servers and the CPU processors, it doesn't leave a lot for the general storage, which is the big bulky volume of the container. Basically, how much storage are you going to have? In hospitals, a typical American hospital today, I know a couple of years ago when I was researching, it was about 10 petabytes of storage of data and there's of course 40,000 clinics and hospitals across the US. So basically what we're looking at is enabling the hospital to have a lot of storage of data storage. And we fixed that problem with SwissVault by enabling the reduction in energy, reduction in space, and simplifying the data management part. So you don't need a lot of OpEx or operational expenses just to manage that data volume, which is the most pristine, most precious asset that you want to keep pristine as well. And so that's what we do with the software component and the hardware component
Mhm.
is reduce the energy consumption dramatically,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
that, let's say for 1 petabyte, you're down to like 300 watts. 300 watts per petabyte means that you have 99.6 kilowatts out of that 900 kilowatts available for everything else, right? You want
Mhm.
to do. And so that's a tremendous boost in capability that we're enabling because the energy envelope is limiting.
That's right. Yeah, there's a lot of news with you guys in terms of just being able to maximize that space for capacity, and we'll get into that how that works because both Kais-AIR and SwissVault represent a large degree of engineering optimization and mathematics. You guys always impressed me years ago as an encryption company, and then years later doing what you do with storage is outstanding. And we'll look at those specs here in a minute. But between
Thank
the
you.
two of you coming together just makes absolute sense because on one hand you're able to save almost a whole order of magnitude in energy costs using your systems, a Swiss fault, and in combination with Kaiser's modularity, makes it to where you don't need this huge data center. You could put something in a back lot, and have that fit in a lot of industrial parks actually, or even inside your building in just a small room. It's not as big as an undertaking as it might have been years ago, and based on all these requirements now, we need smaller solutions.
Dan, that's so true.
Yeah.
And what's kind of
Yeah.
interesting is we kind of got involved in this with hospitals during COVID,
Hmm.
where hospitals who had their own data centers and IT within the hospital itself found it really difficult to access that hospital. And as a result, companies were starting to look at how can we separate the IT, but still keep it in close proximity to
Hmm.
the hospital. And that's where this evolution occurred with the micro edge data center, where it could be close by the hospital, maybe even attached to the hospital on the exterior site, but it would give them the capability to access it. The other thing that kind of happened is a lot of companies had this cloud first strategy. They still do to some extent, but now it's becoming more of an AI first strategy. A few things have kind of happened as a result of this. In the past, when companies were storing their data at AWS or some of the other hyperscale companies, it was fine for archive cold storage. But with AI, they now want to train their models for AI applications. And in the process, there's charges that are incurred by these companies called ingress, egress, and transport costs to get the data. And because that data is going in and out so frequently to train these models, the costs are escalating exponentially. So companies are trying to figure out how now can they get the data back from the hyperscalers, store it on premises to reduce their operating expenses. And that's one of the main drivers that we're seeing today with this move towards
Yeah.
edge sort of
There-
deployments.
There's such a need for this too. You have to be flexible. You cannot, it's hard enough to burn a lot of time and energy in testing something, but then the insult to injury is that you have to pay for the data cost again, right? When you should be able to freely experiment and test as needed on-prem without all of that getting in the way of a successful pilot or what have you. So I have a lot of respect for that. And as someone who's worked
I
in
think
data
this is
for a long
way.
time, yeah, yeah, I can see
And
it.
I can add, I can add that data sovereignty really is a key focus for the future growth of AI in particular, because people are understanding that once your data gets into an AI model, it's basically in there forever, and so I can't emphasize that enough. So key players like healthcare, banks, government, they want to make sure that data is remains on premise where
Mhm.
they can maintain the privacy and security of the data. And hospitals, like I use that example often now because that's where we were designing for when we were designing our systems. We were thinking about the limited energy, the limited space, and the limited management pool that they might have to manage large growing volumes of data. And how do we make that all simplified, reduce the energy, reduce the space, reduce the overhead operational cost. And so I think that hospitals and all these will be very keen to make sure that data privacy is there for
Mhm.
them.
Yeah, yeah, it is
In
key,
addition to,
definitely.
Paul, or I'm sorry, Dan, in addition to
Mhm.
that, companies want to be able to share that data on a geo-distributed basis. And Bhupendra, I know you've got some slides that you might want to show that kind of shows a little bit about how the technology works on the software side, as well
Sure.
as how it works geo locationally. And then we can also show the Kais-AIR location or the Kais-AIR modular data center.
I'd be happy to give you an introduction a little bit about how we bring sustainability to the edge and the benefits that I mentioned earlier. What I've titled it is, you can see here, is that it says efficiently managing global data storage for the AI age. And that's just not presumptuous at all. We know that everybody's going to be using AI in the near future, and we asked about, we talked about, Joe mentioned about latency, reducing the latency, having data on premise. It's important for AI to act quickly on the data and process it very quickly. And of course, we talked about the sovereignty part, which is also on-prem, allows to have the sovereignty. And what we need to do to make it all happen is reducing that energy and making the speed of data faster. And I'm going to show you how we do that with the technology that we think will be enabling this for the edge, for everybody's edge, in fact. And the need now is very important because of the fact that data is growing. And just after some of the large language models popped up, and Dan, I think you can speak much more to this than I can, of course, and that is that the data jumped in terms of year-on-year growth. 30% year-on-year growth was experienced just in last year. I'm looking for the data of next year. When we go to supercompute, we'll pick up on some of the information about how data growth is growing by meeting a lot of our partners there, who are the OEM providers for data storage. So
Yeah.
the problem, of course, is that you have this massive growth and it's unsustainable and inefficient because today the volume of data that we're experiencing and collecting from sensors, the sensor edges, the AI data creation, because people are producing lots and lots of volumes of new materials, is that this data has to be put somewhere, basically. And that's usually in a data center on disk drives or servers. And that's using a lot of energy. It's producing a lot of electronic waste as well, because every 3 to 5 years we are refreshing these electronics and switching them out at the data center. And of course, the high operational costs and capex costs that are experienced at the data center site. And really, this data storage industry part is not yet disrupted. And we feel that it's kind of at the poised to be disrupted by introducing a new concept or new methodologies that can make all these things, all these headaches go away, basically reducing the space, reducing the electrical energy consumption, reducing the electronic waste, and reducing the OpEx and CapEx costs.
Hey, Bhupinder, there's two factoids I'd like to add to this. They're estimating that by 2030, that there's going to be 527 zettabytes of data out there. And if you were to look at a 30 terabyte drive, you know how many drives you would need to accommodate that much data? Google tells us it's 17.5 billion drives. Now, maybe this is why some of the stock of the OEMs that make disk drives is escalating. But that's one point. And the other thing that we all faced just recently, October 1st actually, is when Microsoft moved from Windows 10 to Windows 11. And it's estimated that that move alone is going to make 550 million PCs and computers obsolete, contributing to your point here with skyrocketing e-waste.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
So basically, the way we approach this problem is that we looked at two different problem sets. One is, of course, what we call the data bloat. So it's caused by the way we manage data today. So we do that typically with a file replication. You have an original file that's, let's say, 1 petabyte of data. And to make sure that the data is available so that in case the server or the disk drives fail, you make a backup copy, typically on another server. Typically, maybe if you have the resources, you might do it in a different building altogether, so a different data center. You might want to do a backup again, especially if it's government data or very sensitive data, healthcare data. You do 2 backups to maintain these data sets. So 2 backups is 200% hardware overhead. And typically, you're only accessing one of those servers or where the copy is maintained. And overall, by doing this method, we experience what's called data bloat. And the one access server is your limited speed, or what's called limited access to the read and write to data. So you experience slow data speeds. And overall, this results in ballooning costs for data management overall. And what we've done is build a file system. The file system enables us to address these costs and pain points. And typically, ratio coding is now coming into vogue, and we have seen a couple of solutions out there. It's the way you apply ratio coding gives you some of the benefits, and we think we've done a great job of doing that. Where we take a file, we can chop it up into any data slices and any parity slices that we want. Parity pieces are basically mathematical projections of the data. They're not copies of the data, and they could be quite small, basically, in terms of chunks. And so when you build a parity, you are enabling the resiliency to the data loss. So it's a very simple formula, A plus B equals C. So A and B are the data chunks, and C is your parity chunk. So it's just a formula, basically. So if you're missing a piece like B, you can go C minus A, the parity minus A data chunk will give you the B, the missing piece that you need. And that allows us to build this kind of resiliency in the system. So when you have multiple failures, for instance, you can stitch the data back together and send it back to the customer. So this software can work on any hardware, and it can work in the Kais-AIR modular data center at the edge. So you have this high resiliency, but also fast speed because multiple servers are sending you the data at the same time. So you can feed your AI algorithm, your genome sequencing algorithm platform much faster, and you get faster analysis of those images or genome sequences or other data sets that you have. And the second benefit is that you don't have this large data bloat. So the old example where I showed you before, where the two copies, you have 200% overhead, managing 3 petabytes just for that 1 petabyte file. Here, with making multiple data chunks, let's say you make 120 data chunks and 6 parity chunks, you basically are at only 5% overhead. 5% overhead. Your original file, 1 petabyte, and 50 terabytes of your erasure coded parity.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can see you can deliver a lot more data in the same space that basically we're limiting. And Joe mentioned earlier is the ability to take those modular data centers and build a resilient network that's geo-distributed. So if there's a flood-prone area, and that maybe that's a risk, but if you put another data center just a little bit further out, you can build resiliency in that network at the edge, especially in the remote community, for instance. So here I show you an extreme edge example. Seattle, Phoenix, New York, and London were connected into one namespace. We spread a data file across those 4 data sites, and no site had a complete file. So basically just had pieces of it. And by this method, you can lose a whole city from basically not being connected, maybe losing the network due to flooding or some other loss catastrophe. And the other sites that are online can deliver that data to the hospital or to the government site. So in this way, you're building a resilient, long-term data storage that we want to address for our customers. And also it's much faster than the native speed would be, let's say on the network might be 15 megabytes. Because you're sending things in parallel, you're leveraging the parallelization, you're getting much faster speeds. And I see Paul has come online again, but I want to quickly finish up and say, what's the second part of this component? First part I just showed you is the software that manages it for this applications at the edge so that you get this lower data volumes, faster speeds, and self-managing error correction and etc. The second part of it is reducing the energy at the server space. So we redesigned a server. Here's a NAS server that only consumes 100 watts. 100 watts is basically, it doesn't produce a lot of heat either. So 100 watts is less energy in, less heat out, which means we need less cooling at that location for the data storage component. And then we have a very silent servers. If you ever live next to a data center, you know how loud they can be.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things is that as a result of the fans and the noise that's created from that. And here what we're saying is that we don't need as much noise that's being produced by these servers because they're near silent, less than a refrigerator. And if you just put 3 of them together, that's only 300 watts, but you're at a petabyte of storage. And so I'll kind of finish there, but basically, I wanted to point out to you I put this slide in because I thought Paul might be a little bit late, but basically building an edge node, we can build something like the Kais-AIR modular storage. You have 100 kilowatts, And if you want 30 petabytes of storage there, we're using just basically 10 kilowatts of power, and 90 kilowatts is available for other applications at that node edge. So I'll stop there and turn it back to you, Dan.
All right. Excellent. Oh, I love that. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you. Excellent. Yeah, it's incredible. There's so many ways to trim back the power costs and space and heating issues, there's so many wins when using this and in combination with Kais-AIR. Welcome, Paul. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Paul.
Hey, good
Welcome.
to see you, Joe.
And I know you have some
Good.
travel issues, but I'm glad that you made it. Airports are a pain in the butt these days, but we're getting through it. One of the questions that kind of came up in the chat was sovereignty. And the beauty of the modular data centers is that they can be dropped anywhere, and they really do address the sovereignty issue where the data can stay within a state or even within a country. And we're seeing just a tremendous growth on the hyperscale side, but it's not sustainable. It's hard to get parts, it's hard to get all kinds of things. And this modular solution is what we're finding out that's getting a lot of traction around the globe. And we are working on projects in countries that I never thought we would be doing business in for this very reason. It's quick, it's easy to do, and we're really providing that plug and play full service. All you have to do is plug it in when we're done instead of trying to figure out what to put in it. We're helping the clients and the customers figure out exactly what needs to go in these enclosures so that they can have that data center operational day one. Back to you, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, and the sovereignty, I mean, the piece that we're seeing, and Bhupinder put up the 100 kilowatt, and we've actually designed a unit all the way down to 40 kilowatts because of remote locations, because folks want them in each of their nations, each of their states, each of their communities, depending on what the clients are looking for, if the cloud isn't a complete solution for them.
That's terrific. And I've just seen so many different sizes and types that have been engineered by Kais-AIR, and thinking about a lot of facilities I've been in, I'm like, well, there's a corner that could go in just easily, and just cage it up. It's so well contained. It's in and out with whatever HVAC you need. And you've been doing this for a long time, and you've seen a lot of variety. And then also, could you speak to the Blade Room group on this as well? Very impressed
Sure.
about this. Yeah.
Yeah, so Blade Room's been doing the modular data centers for 15 plus years. They do a lot of business in Europe. We're the North American licensee for it, but Blade Room's technology, they're about getting as much efficiency as they can. A lot of the places they do it in Europe, they're 100% free cooling, meaning they don't have to use a chiller and a condenser or anything like that. And even as they go to liquid cooling, some of their designs they're trying to be as efficient as possible, both from a water usage, trying to minimize or near zero usage of water, and then same on the electricity side. And they've been doing the modular piece, which allows you can retrofit a building, you can drop it in a parking lot, like you said, there's a lot of different options because you're basically breaking a data center into Legos and then moving those Legos around as whatever the client's needs are based on their facilities they have.
You could have several buildings spread out across a campus, like a university, hospital, anything, and they can all have their own, a small micro data center that all connects and speeds up that data resilience and availability through SwissVault and the way Kais-AIR runs things. I mean, you're looking at being able to just scale as you go. And you don't have to commit to some gigantic project. I love this. In my efforts to help with AI sovereignty, working for the National AI Office for Malaysia and helping out in the working groups, like these types of options are what provide freedom and true sovereignty to groups, countries, companies, individuals. And it's affordable too. That's the other approach. All of my research shows that Kais-AIR and SwissVault independently and together create such a large amount of savings that even if you weren't trying to scale up more, you could scale down and save money too. You could actually, again, repatriate your data and where you need it. And I listen to so many shows and podcasts on my own and have my own as well. And right now the word is that later on, inference is going to be 90% of the driving factor in compute and not all this, overpriced GPU. But it's important to be able to train your data with GPUs and use inference. And the modularity, not only of the size and the constraints and engineering between you two, but the availability for, oh, well, let's add in inference compute versus GPUs. No problem. It's very flexible systems that both of you have. And it's one of the reasons that I just, want to get my hands on everything right now. So that it's a phenomenal time to see, companies coming around. And just like Joe said, it's the cost of data transit. And then also you're storing it and you need resilience. So it's a win-win situation from what I've seen.
What I like about this is the Kais-AIR Blade Room solution is what you mentioned, Dan, scalable, where you could go from a 500 kW sort of operation to a 10 megawatt or even 100 megawatt sort of deployment. The point is that when you're looking at modularity in data centers, everything's built in the factory and can be as small as you want it or as large as you want it. And I know the Blade Room in the UK and elsewhere has built megawatt facilities using this system.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, and what you're seeing on the screen there is what we call an all-in-one unit or volumetric. It is self-contained. It's got anywhere between 10 and 13 racks. That unit there is 100 kilowatts, air-cooled. It can go anywhere from 40 up to 350 kilowatts of air-cooled, about that same size. And then if you make that liquid-cooled, you can get the same number of racks. Like this is a lot what we've been working with SwissVault. You transition that to liquid cooled, that box basically stays the same size, but you got to add in another module for a chiller. But now you can have 10 GB200s, 10 RTX, the 6000 Pros. You can put that on your facility. That size, what you're seeing on the screen, is a 15-foot by 60-foot. So that fits what we hear all the time is, hey, we can drop that in our parking lot. Or we can drop that in a fenced-in area where our garbage, where we have our garbage dumps or whatever, because it's such a small footprint. But you can imagine if you had 10 GB200s, that's what, 720 GPUs in a small space like that, able to give you whatever you need for whatever your AI needs are.
Right. And it's just so much faster to be able to, deliver that and drop in a modular solution that's bespoke to the environment. And even have the ability to grow if needed inside of that. So there's a lot to offer. I mean, between SwissVault liberating, SMR, shingled magnetic recording drives, which usually only hyperscalers could get, and that saves you what, 20, maybe 25% on storage capacity. And then in combination with the way that just Kais-AIR builds, it's just so easy to expand. That's one of the things that I find so attractive is that, oh, you want to pull your compute, you want to mix and match it however you need to. You need to train on the cloud but securely, but then use everything else later on-prem. Perfect. It's flexible in every direction. Also, I might add, just while I'm thinking about it, is the way SwissVault builds their hardware is green up and green down, which means it's actually meant to recycle later. Okay, and I mean, it's a very good approach and forward thinking, I feel like. And looking at all the specs for so long myself, I'm just again excited for the future and the near term as well. And this is moving fast. I've heard a lot of people talking about this in the last few weeks, and it's been coming anyway. It's been a long time coming, but in the last month, looking at cybersecurity breaches, looking at cloud outages. One day it's AWS, the other day it's Azure. Things just keep moving, and so it's becoming extremely important to lock down and secure your data, but also make it available. And so I really appreciate the efforts that your two companies put in to do this.
And what's kind of interesting is that the three of us have been problem solvers for the last 30 years or so. Each one of us on our own capacities have dealt with data issues and data problems. And I think that it's that sort of background and experience that kind of led us to where we are today, where we want to come up with solutions that would not only just help our companies, but also help others. I think that's what it's all about. And the supply chain these days is so critical. And that's why the Kais-AIR blade room are built both in the United States and Michigan. Shout out to Michigan. I was with a bunch of companies today or this week for economic developers from around the United States. A lot were from Michigan, and they are very interested in this because municipalities have a need as well for these types of data centers, but they're not quite sure how to do this. So anything can be shipped within 24 weeks around the globe out of Michigan. And I want to come tour that facility, Paul. So I've got a lot of people that want to join me in a tour of your plant there in Holland, Michigan. So
right. And this is an international effort. I mean, both of your companies are international. I know SwissVault's in Switzerland, and also you've got Jersey, Vancouver, British Columbia. I know Kais-AIR is global as well. You guys are in the UK as well, correct?
Blade Room's based out of the UK. They've done business pretty much on every continent except Antarctica.
Right. It's the difference between making a project possible and not, and you know what I mean? Like, because the power, lower footprint, everything else just lower in general, and then you're not having to overcommit, right? To a larger, something larger than you need. All of a sudden, I forget the exact name of the project, Bhupinder, but it was in South Africa, for a hospital's system, and then all of a sudden, hey, you're able to support other types of power, solar combined with battery backups, things like this. And all of a sudden, all that low footprint, low power makes something possible at the edge that may not have been before. And I just feel for all the businesses out there, no matter how big or small you are, and individual developers. Like, the cloud can be a leaky bucket. And when you can see, these developing options to get out of that cycle of overspending and lean into the mathematical optimization that's at hand, that exists right now. This isn't some pie in the sky. You guys have been doing this for a while. And, Paul, funny enough, when I tell people about SwissVault, they're like, oh, how could this work? There's no way. That's impossible. This is too good to be true. And I'm like, well, here, look at Kais-AIR and what they're doing with them. They're like, oh, okay, all right. I want to look at all of this now because it just seems too good to be true. And as a digital forensics specialist of 18 years working with all kind of like cold storage systems and a variety of other digital devices, as you could imagine, I see so much value in this. And again, bringing it in a secure way to the environment it needs to be in, inside of that business.
So I wanted to, Paul, there's a question in the chat that asks for kind of examples of deployment, especially in Africa, for the modular data center. Could you talk to about that?
Sure. So the previous image that I showed, I'll pull that up again because it's good to see it while we're talking about it. So that size unit that is on the screen now is 15 foot by 60. But the beauty of the modularity is this size unit we've shipped to Africa. One went to a research university. They were using it for a drone fleet management. There's been some other telecom related. The beauty of that is it really, you drop it on site, you plug in the power, you do some final tests, and it's up and running. The cooling unit that you see on the far left-hand side of the screen, we accommodate that depending on where it is in Africa. It can be completely self-contained if you're in an environment, whether it's a dusty environment or environment that's hot and humid. And we can ship it. So we can separate out the pieces. We could ship this whole unit, 15 foot by 60, can be shipped on a cargo container, or we can break the pieces apart. And that's the beauty of the modularity. It's hard to tell in this picture, but between the Kais-AIR and Blade Room sticker, you could actually separate that unit out if you wanted to ship it, depending on how the freight is being handled and where it's going. It's really designed to be shipped on a rail, shipped even via helicopter if it needed to be. We can break the pieces in, and that's the beauty of the Blade Room design, is they really designed it to be able to separate the pieces, to be able to fit it wherever it needs to go. The thing in Africa is there just maybe isn't enough, as much manufacturing capability. This can be manufactured 12 weeks. It's on a ship and it's heading over to its ultimate destination. 95% tested in our factory. And so by the time it gets on site, you're adding only another week and then your site is up and running.
Hey, Paul, there's another point I'd like you to make, and that is we're talking about data centers primarily, but what you just showed us can also be a clean room. And you've been deploying them for hospitals around the globe as well. If someone needed an operating room, the same sort of solution that we have that works for data centers can also be used for other applications. Want to touch on that?
Yeah, so Module Co. So Palladium also has Module Co. and they do all the hospital facilities in the United Kingdom, and they're modular operating rooms. So they can be for natural disasters, they can be for remote areas. We're seeing a lot where urgent care clinics that are, in the U.S. in particular, that want to add a like same day surgery capability. That module that I showed on the screen can be outfitted. It can be your same day patient surgery facility if needed. So, just not data centers. Yeah, there you go. The healthcare facilities. It's hard to tell in that picture there. That's actually, modules that are put together. They're manufactured in our factory, and then you would just ship the pieces, and then when you get on site, you just put them together. You can't tell once that facility is up and running.
What's kind of
interesting,
Dan and Paul, is there's a lot of companies that look at the shelters that you might see at the base of a cellular tower. It's a little concrete building. A lot of companies are deploying them because they're fairly inexpensive. But kind of look at the way you do these projects versus those types of products. Yours is way superior than that. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so if you build a building, a little brick building like that, it's kind of stuck there. And one thing some of our clients appreciate is for example, we are deploying a data center to construction site. They need on-site servers on site during the construction project. It's a multi-year project. But then when they're done, they want to take that data center and send it to the next facility. Next data construction project that they're doing. And so that's one of the beauties of that modularity is you can pick that unit up, you can move it around the site. So if you're building a multi-phase, you want to move it. If you want to move it to a new location, you can do that. If you have a cell phone tower and you're building a new one, you can pick it up and move it. And we're seeing a lot of clients and the piece, because we're a manufacturing facility, if you say you want 10, 15, 20 of those, that's easy for us to replicate and just start and push them out. And they're being built in the factory, so we don't have to deal with a lot of the environmental constraints. Trying to build in Michigan in January and February is probably not fun. And we also aren't competing for the same labor resources. So what we see in the data center industry, if you're trying to get electricians in Dallas, Columbus, Northern Virginia, they're hard to come by. Our electricians are on site in our facility in just north of Detroit. And so we are not having to compete with the same resources. So a lot of clients see that as a way to de-risk their projects is, the labor resources are handled offsite in some different, in this case in Holly, Michigan.
And I have a live one I want to run by you really quick. It's a little out of order, but it's totally on topic here. We have someone asking, from a logistics perspective, this is probably maxed out in weight to be put on a trailer, right? You likely can't install the IT and then ship. Would you have to install the IT when it lands in its final destination? Is that assumption correct? So tell us how full service this really is from Kais-AIR.
Sure. So that picture you saw, that unit weighed about 88,000 pounds. So 15 foot by 60 is about as big as you can ship in the United States without having to have a lot of special permits and things like that. What we would do is if the unit's bigger, we just break it into smaller pieces. We typically don't ship with racks, especially liquid cooled racks at 5,000 pounds. It would be difficult to keep those stable. So what we will typically do is install the racks, and then all the servers and the other pieces and parts will be installed in the field for the most part.
Yeah.
And Dan, I might add that what we're doing is we're actually in the factory, not at Kais-AIR, but in another factory. We would actually configure everything that's needed in that rack so that when it is shipped, it's been fully tested and configured. And this is really working especially well with the SMR drives that Bhupinder mentioned earlier, because SwissVault has a breakthrough in being able to use these SMR drives for enterprise companies. Right now, as you mentioned, Dan, only the hyperscalers can use them. They're high capacity drives, they're super efficient, they're low energy, only no one's been able to use them because of the proprietary software and hardware. The SwissVault technology now unlocks that. And this is going to be another product that will be a plug and play that goes into these enclosures.
it's so important. I mean, and then just on the SwissVault end of things, there's so many levels of adoption. You could just get the file system itself and pay to license that, which is extremely affordable, and then speed up your resilience on hardware that you already own on a variety of heterogeneous drives that you already own. Could be in VRAM, it could be what do you call it? SMR. It could be platter drives. It could be SATA drives, solid state. But the file system works across all that. And then if you want to take it a step up, you can get SwissVault hardware too, and maybe
Yes,
choose inference and something that runs cooler, and then step that up and put that in together with Kais-AIR, and then scale that as needed. And it's a winning
exactly.
solution for secure operations.
One of the other things that we're working on, I think, is going to be a game changer, and other companies are really pursuing this as well, and that is
Mhm.
on-site power generation. We
Yes.
have a concept in mind that works really well with the combined technologies of SwissVault and Kais-AIR, where we would self-generate power on site.
Hmm.
We don't need a connection to the grid. It would be nice if we had it, but we're not really depending on the grid for these operations, that they can operate 100% off grid on their own with reliable power from multiple sources.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a game changer right there for sure. Um, let's talk about the shingled magnetic recording for 2 seconds. A lot of people out there might know about it. And, again, this is the way it was locked out is people needed special hardware and firmware to deal with those drives. Is that correct, Joe, for SMR?
Bhupinder, you might want to take that.
There we go.
And maybe you're on mute.
You're quite right. I am. So I'm going to just share a screen just so everybody knows what we're talking about here. The three OEM providers, Western Digital, Seagate, and Toshiba, discovered that one can take the platter where data is written on a disk drive, especially the spinning disk drives, and which are very good for long-term storage, by the way, as opposed to SSDs or other media. On a conventional magnetic recording drive, the tracks where you lay down the data are parallel to each other. So you see the blue ones. Hopefully you can see my cursor, and this gives you a certain data density on a platter. But but if you overlaid these tracks like shingles on a roof, you can see them overlaid, you get to be able to generate up to 25, maybe even 30% more data on a single platter. And the way this tracks work, though, unfortunately, is that you have to write and read your buffer and delete tracks in a way that gets the synchronization done properly. And most file systems like ZFS or VMware or others don't work very well with these kind of drives, this kind of overlaying the drives. And so this is called shingle magnetic recording technology. And so one of the things about making things easy to use at the edge, especially in a modular data center in a remote community area, is to be able to give the flexibility to use any media that you want. So because right now you might have to reconfigure and need an expert to come in there and install a whole server just with NVMe for your fast feeding your data to a GPU. But what we're saying is that you can use the Vault file system and you can use any kind of media. And this is an extreme example of the shingle magnetic recording drives, which are now coming down the pipe. So the roadmap for shingle magnetic recording, just so everybody knows, is that we're going to get to higher and higher data storage density by merging things like HAMR, heat-assisted magnetic recording, which gives you higher density, with shingle magnetic recording, which gives you the track overlays. So you get the higher. So what's anticipated is we'll have maybe 40 terabyte, 50 terabyte, 100 terabyte drives in the coming years. And that means that as drive technology advances and we get higher density, we want to be able to enable the operator at the edge to be able to use anything at any time at any different volumes. So you can, if you have a limited space at the edge, and you only have certain data slots, you can change that out and get more data storage density on the same footprint without having to add more space in your data center. And so this gives that ability now. So you know now what shingle magnetic recording is going. It just gives you the ability to use it, though it depends on the file system. And the Vault file system that we have allows you to use it very easily.
What's,
Hopefully I answered the question.
what's interesting
Oh
is that
yeah.
SMR drives, by the way, or SMR, could also mean small modular reactors, which is another acronym that's really getting a lot of attention these days. When I mentioned SMRs to people, that's what they were thinking, nuclear. Well, I guess they could be nuclear disks, but pretty cool, Dan.
Yeah. So I have a good one live. This is a great question. It might come to me. I don't know. So Bram asks, I'm not sure if this follows the Q&A thread, but so this relates to the other question I raised. So does this mean that we would need to bring our own software layer to facilitate inference and orchestration of many models on the hardware supplied in the module? And so the SwissVault VFS, the Vault FS, is the file system that's on the drives and across your volumes. And on top of that is whatever infrastructure, in terms of environment and software you would like to lay out. Okay. And so it is the foundation from which you would build with. All right. You would build on top of it. So you would be using whatever your choice would be. It's not locking you into anything. And so, yeah, you would need to bring your own software layer to facilitate these things. It's correct, right, Bhupinder, Joe?
No, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's what you want, as someone who's had to deal with tape backups myself and, Linux, Unix, all these different systems over the decades. I love knowing that I can just set something up and then roll on top of it whatever deployment I need to. So ultimately, you
Yeah.
have the freedom to do what you
Yeah.
want. You're not locked into anything by using it.
Correct.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And if anyone in the audience is looking for a solution, we can talk to some of our vendor partners to help them build a solution. So please just reach out
Yeah.
to us.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And I commonly run AI at home on home hardware
Yeah.
and other types of infrastructure. And it's one of those things where when you find out about technology like this, you want to get your hands on it and start working with it because it's just so exciting to have it. It's different. And again, being able to supply inference or GPUs if you wanted, it's however you would like it to be. You're not locked in and you have the freedom to expand or in some cases change things out. So I've just overall as a developer and someone who has to maintain things, very impressed and happy to work with these technologies as they sit. Um, so I hope that answers your question, Bram. Um,
Dan, I think
yeah,
flexibility is really the key.
yeah,
And the SwissVault software really works on anyone's hardware, so we're kind of avoiding vendor lock-in, like a lot of companies like to keep
yes,
us locked into their solutions. And the
hmm
same thing on the Kais-AIR modular data center. We're flexible with respect to OEMs and OEM equipment. So if you
yeah,
wanted to use a particular brand, that certainly can be incorporated into that enclosure. So we
right.
try to accommodate the customer's needs because maybe they've got, for consistency purposes, a particular brand of equipment in their systems and they want to maintain that, and that's perfectly fine.
hmm Right, exactly. There's a one visual I really like. I'm going to pull it up really quick for everybody to see here on the screen for 2 seconds here. And so, just as a hardware guy, I really appreciate the flexibility, and any of this stuff could be added into a Kaiser system. And here you've got these different racks. You've got a variety of hard drives, PATA, SATA, SSD, you know. And you can, what's so great about this is in a cluster of these and an array of these, if a drive goes out, you could just unplug it and plug a brand new one back in, and it will automatically repopulate it. It's so charming to have this work and be just very very easy to change out and upgrade and what have you. So very welcoming to be able to use whatever you already have. Again, we're here to save money and not and reduce waste. I mean, why do you want to go buy a whole bunch of things that it's going to lock you in one way when you could just start with what you have and evolve as you go and be careful and be frugal and make prudent moves with your investments at this point because these are approachable and I want this in my house. There's no excuse for me. But anyway, no, I love seeing this. And are there any other? Let's see.
One other point I want to make is that, especially with Bram's question in particular, is that you can
Uh-huh.
order any equipment to be put into the modular data center. It's not limited to
Right.
the SwissVault system.
hmm
So there's that flexibility. And of course, if you're looking for a particular type of GPUs or servers or even
hmm
JBots, that's quite possible.
Right. Yeah. And especially with and I'm not going to bring up all the companies out there that are in this, but inference, compute is you need more of it to do training, but you need less of it to do inference, right? So you need GPUs for a lot of training. But when it comes to inference, that's what most of our usage in AI
Absolutely.
is as an end user. This goes from, optical, motion detection, from generation, your standard, chat sessions that you have out there, all use inference, which is extremely cool. And I might add that in some of these SwissVault racks that they're nearly silent and only use fans, and it's just so manageable. And anything that's cool will last longer. But this is also a modular thing. And to be forward about compute, if you had another box you wanted to set up and have inference accelerator cards in it, which are actually extremely affordable and again low power, low temperature, you could easily pull that, like compute pooling, into anything that you build with SwissVault and Kais-AIR. It's extremely easy, and you could even do that remotely on a hybrid cloud. Or if you have several offices, everyone could share, the resources of that resilience and that data speed up and availability and the secure sovereign, corpus of knowledge that is siloed in some countries and companies in different ways and very important now. So I find it extremely welcoming and approachable.
And what's kind of interesting is what we're trying to do is help companies democratize their data once again. That's how
Mhm.
it started in the beginning. Everybody had their
Yeah,
own on-site data centers.
right.
They decommissioned and moved to the cloud, but now we're
Uh-huh.
seeing the trend come back. And we're
Hmm.
trying to accommodate that by making it easy. Because it
Yeah.
is a hard thing to do with trying to figure out what the infrastructure is that you need or what sort of IT equipment that you need. We're trying
Hmm.
to take that element out of the equation to make it really super easy for companies to repatriate and adopt this and pull things back
Right.
to on premises to be able to decouple from the hyperscalers that are out there and taking money from us every day.
Yeah. Uh, and you're welcome, Becky. Thanks for your support there. I'm glad we can answer a lot of your questions. I'm seeing a few pop up here. Uh, yeah, I mean, again, you're looking at being able to start properly. Look at new companies and small businesses and startups. That you have the ability to get a better return on your investment and upgrade along the way. Look, I had someone come to me the other day and said, "What if I bought 50 of those NVIDIA Sparks or 500 of those, right?" And I'd say, "Well, they overheat. You're not getting enough power out of them, as people are reporting, and you can't really change that. And you work with a modular system between Kaiser and SwissVault. You can adapt and evolve how you need to, with very low environmental impact on the way up and down in the construction and the deconstruction of that, should you need to. And I think that's the green approach we need is a full, cycle of, you know, sustainability. And anyway, so yeah, and I'm again excited for all the developers out there. If you are consulting and you're working with companies that need a better solution, stop, prescribing the cloud in its many forms and start looking at a hybrid approach that admits that, hey, we may not have all this money for these big guns right now, but we can work our way into this properly. Yeah, we're going to need these GPUs out here, but we don't necessarily have to invest in those. We can invest on what we're going to use after that, which is the inference. But either way, you want your data to be sovereign and secure. You want it to live as close to home as you can. I don't have to explain that. There's enough cyber news out there for everybody to, in the last month to see the light on that and for even longer. But I find it, again, a very approachable and welcoming combination and partnership between Kaiser and SwissVault. And I know a lot of the people that I work with are extremely excited to get involved and start using these technologies. And so I have to thank you all for coming out. Any final thoughts here between any of you gentlemen?
I'll go first.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
These are exciting times,
Hmm.
and there are innovations on the market that are even coming, like the radioisotope thermoelectric generators, also known as SMRs.
Right.
Uh, New technologies that we're going to need to embrace if we're going to really try to meet the needs of the power and
Hmm.
data. And so it comes down to energy, comes down to storing data. The companies that we're working with, I think, have some of those solutions that can provide answers
Hmm.
and really help organizations that are trying to figure out what to do in the
Right.
future. Bhupinder?
Yeah, one comment, and that is that data is going to grow infinitely that's going to be the currency for which we are all. I mean, it's the air that basically all businesses have to breathe in order to in order to operate. And what we want to be able to do is, first of all, with the Kais-AIR, is build more efficiency in the system to be able to manage this data. So if I was one advice I'd give is basically when you're just trying to decide systems, think that don't just be fooled into thinking that you need these high power energy systems. What we're trying to show, we've demonstrated already that you can use low power systems and get high efficiencies out of these as well. And so please reach out to us and we'd love to talk.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, Bhupinder. Yeah, and I would just say, you know, I appreciate SwissVault because we could not meet all of our clients' needs. Partners like SwissVault bring us, so when a client comes to us, we can reach out to all these alliances. And I think in the data center industry, you really need alliances to be able to solve the client's problem without them having to go to 30 different vendors to be able to come up with a solution. So I do appreciate, and Daniel, thanks for hosting this today.
Oh,
I really
absolutely. And thanks to everybody who attended. I mean, this is one of those things where you get in early and you get privy to this information, and then you see the world a little bit differently. It doesn't have to be a protested data center. It doesn't have to be, oh, you know, Meta just bailed on $70 million of building data center to do it right and start over. You don't have to make those mistakes. I think we've all seen people make enough mistakes over the last few years to just approach this and do it right. And I can't think of two better companies than Kais-AIR and SwissVault. And so to everyone out there, thank you so much for attending. And Joe, Bhupinder, Paul, thank you so much for your continued efforts. And you do so much. And taking the time to do this with me today means a lot to everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Thanks for joining.